So a while back, I made 2 videos on For All Mankind discussing concepts from that show that I wasn't really a big fan of. The first being the concept of sending a space shuttle to the moon, a flight profile that vehicle is completely incapable of fulfilling, and the second being the historical changes that would be necessary to allow a Soviet moon landing to occur. So I figured today we'd kind of mix things up and I'd talk about something I actually kind of liked from that show. Let's discuss the Lunar Surface Access Module, or LSAM, the advanced lunar module present in the first season of For All Mankind. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So, the LSAM, or Lunar Surface Access Module, is at its core an advanced version of the LEM, or Lunar Excursion Module, that was present in the real-world Apollo program. So, to understand the role that the LSAM filled, and one of the reasons why I really like it, we have to first talk about the limitations of the Lunar Excursion Module, and what that vehicle was actually designed to do. So let's dive back into the real-world history of the Apollo program, and talk a bit about what the Lunar Module from the Apollo moon missions was actually designed to do. So the Lunar Module, designed by Grumman, was designed to take 2 astronauts from lunar orbit down to the surface of the moon, and then launch them back up to lunar orbit, where it would be involved in a rendezvous with the Command Service Module, or CSM, and the crew would transfer over to the Command Module for their return back to Earth. It ultimately was only designed to spend a few days on the moon, and didn't really bring a ton of supplies or additional excursion equipment with. Later versions of the LEM carried things like the Lunar Rover, and a variety of different surface experiments, but the original versions were pretty bare bones, just designed to put people on the moon and plant a flag, and that was really it. And this brings us to the big limitation of the Lunar Excursion Module, is it is really designed to spend no more than a few days on the moon at most. It also had some pretty significant downsides, too, from an engineering standpoint, mainly the single engine on the ascent stage that if it failed, there was simply no backup, leaving the crew stranded on the moon. Now, luckily, in real life, the ascent engine on the Lunar Excursion Module never failed, and the ascent module was always able to make it back to lunar orbit, but that was a very real risk, and there are some historical precedents set up for in the event that that engine failed. Famously, there was a speech written for Nixon for if the Apollo 11 astronauts ended up stranded on the moon. So that's the role that the LEM was designed to fill: a short few-day excursion to the lunar surface, and then a hop back up into orbit. The problem is that For All Mankind saw the construction of Jamestown Base, a large, permanently occupied facility on the lunar surface, with crews that would rotate in and out of it like the crews on the International Space Station, which meant that a lunar lander had to sit on the surface of the moon for months at a time. That's where the LSAM comes in. The LSAM is ultimately just an advanced version of the LEM, with a more robust thrust system, allowing for having 4 engines as opposed to 1, giving it engine-out capability, making it more reliable, so if one of those engines failed, they could still make orbit if they had to. Furthermore, it allowed a larger number of crew and cargo to be shuffled to and from the lunar surface, allowing the 3-man base at Shackleton Crater to be continuously occupied by 3 crew members as opposed to the 2 the original LEM could carry, and it carried the supplies they needed to the surface. Once again, the original LEM was designed to only operate on the lunar surface for just a few days, so they didn't really carry more than a few days' worth of food and water. Now, if you're spending a lot longer on the lunar surface, you're going to need quite a bit more than that. Furthermore, the LSAM was designed to have fuel manufactured on the surface of the moon, with the discovery of water ice in Shackleton Crater and in some of the shadowed areas at the south pole of the moon. That provided a source for oxygen and hydrogen, which could be used as rocket fuel. So the LSAM was actually designed to be fully reusable, with it being shuttled to and from the surface of the moon to bring crew and cargo to and from Jamestown Base, and in between, a small fuel plant constructed at Jamestown Base would convert mined water ice into liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, which could be used as fuel for the LSAM, allowing them to just continuously reuse the same vehicle instead of needing to regularly replace it. That being said, I'm sure they did regularly replace it after every few crew rotations, but it was not replaced nearly as frequently as something like a traditional lunar excursion module would need to be replaced. So let's get into why I love this, because it shows that, at least in Season 1, the writers of the show had the science in mind and the engineering that went into the Apollo program in their sights when they were designing the sort of world of the show. They knew that the LEM would not serve the role well of shuttling people to and from the surface of the moon in a long-term capacity, and that a different vehicle was needed, but that it had to generally fit within the Apollo architecture, since they're not designing an entirely new launch vehicle to fill this role, at least not in the time frame the show represents. So the LSAM really does resemble the LEM, because it's just based off of the LEM. A few more changes that were likely the case on the LSAM, by the way, that we don't actually see on screen, is, well, the Lunar Excursion Module in real life almost served as a base camp as well, having places for crew to sleep and eat on board as well. I'm not talking about a full galley or anything, but places to hang up hammocks and enough room for 2 people to comfortably live for 2 days. I'm sure the LSAM was a bit more cramped, having to carry an extra person. But because they are just transiting to a larger ground installation, the Jamestown base, they don't really need to live on the LSAM. Just ride it as a transport to and from orbit. That being said, that means that the LSAM doesn't have to be this big, comfortable, spacious moon camper. It can just be a little craft that you'd spend maybe a few hours on going to and from orbit. Ultimately, the LSAM does represent a strong commitment to realism that was present in the first season of the show, that I think they did lose in the second season with their drive to make it more directly emulate the 80s. If you'd like to learn about one of my biggest gripes with Season 2 of For All Mankind, that being the use of a standard space shuttle orbiter to go to and from the moon, I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments what you think of this level of dedication to realism in a TV show. Do you think they really should have just used the LEM? After all, most people really wouldn't understand or notice that discrepancy, or do you think it is the right move to just slightly redesign it to have a reason to say, no, it's designed to do this more advanced job as opposed to what the LEM was originally designed to do? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover anywhere else in science fiction, whether it's For All Mankind or Star Wars, you can let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.